I'm Indy Neidell, and this is a World War II special episode. It is a collaboration with the video game Hearts of Iron, and is episode number 2. In the first one, I spent some time talking about the collaboration in general, how and why it came about, the fact that it is to be alternative history, and my rather pessimistic thoughts about alternative histories in general. You may wish to watch that first to get all of that fairly important basic background info. Link is in the description. Anyhow, collaboration with Hearts of Iron 4 by Paradox Interactive, Part 2. Now, since their new expansion, which is out just around now, has scenarios for the French Resistance and the Spanish Civil War. Last time I did a what if on the Spanish Civil War. Today is going to deal with France, but it is not a wartime resistance what if though, because at the time of writing this, I'm still in 1940 on the channel. France only fell a few months ago, and the organized resistance from books and films is in the future, and I don't want to begin an alternate history in a future that I have yet to cover. Instead, I thought it would be fun to start a French what if during the Spanish Civil War and sort of combine everything. Now, I met with some of the history guys and designers at Paradox, again, who make Hearts of Iron, and who are conveniently located close to my place, my apartment in Stockholm. And we did some brainstorming, and then I brainstormed with you guys from the TimeGhost crew, right? I think I have a really fun one for today, okay? And as a continuity bonus, one that I can begin pretty much the same week that the last one went alternate. The first week of the coup that began the Spanish Civil War in July 1936. This what if is, what if France had sent aid to the Republican forces? I'll ask again. What if France had sent aid to the Republican forces? Now, just like last time, I'm not going to tell you the story of the Spanish Civil War, and I'm not going to tell you how it began to set these things up. You can look that up for yourselves if you like. We do have a Between Two Wars episode about the background to the Spanish Civil War that will help with that. Link is also in the description. But also, just like last time, I will tell a few events that actually happened in our real timeline, and then engineer and reverse engineer really f***ing good what if, okay? You guys are gonna like this one. This is a good one, right? It's really fun. It's really fun to write, okay? Did you just bleep me when I said fuck or no? I guess I'll find out when I see this. Okay, here goes. This is what really happened. So, the nationalist coup in Spain begins July 18th. It is successful in some parts, and General Mola will advance around northern Spain, but it is notoriously not successful in Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia, major cities. Generals Fanjul and Goded are captured at Madrid and Barcelona and eventually executed. General Sanjurjo dies in a plane crash. General Francisco Franco goes to Morocco to take command of the Army of Africa, vital for the coup. One big issue, which I talked about last time, is that the ships needed to get the Army of Africa to Spain fall under Republican control. Now, without them, the coup will fail. Franco petitions Benito Mussolini again and again and again for Italian aid. Mussolini finally sends a bunch of bombers to bring the Army of Africa to Spain. The coup becomes more successful, and it becomes a civil war. It actually becomes a long, drawn-out civil war as well, since Nazi Germany also sends help to the nationalists, while the Soviet Union sends financial and military aid to the Republicans. That's what happens in real life. But what about France? More importantly here, what about France and how does it affect World War II? Spain, under the victorious Franco, is neutral in World War II in the real world. So what was going on with France in this world? Okay. Italy's support at the end of July is vital for the success of the coup, but Italy is initially hesitant to send aid. A big reason for that is that Mussolini is concerned that the French are going to send aid to Spain's legitimate Popular Front government. And while Mussolini is very much interested in disturbing Anglo-French hegemony in the Mediterranean, he's not about to risk war with either France or Britain at this point. But around July 25th, he gets reports that the French were rethinking the idea of sending aid, and they're not going to do it. So he stops hesitating himself about sending aid. Now, still in real time, and I mean the real world, right? On the 19th, as the coup is kicking off, French Prime Minister Léon Blum gets a telegram reading, "Surprised by dangerous military coup. Stop. Beg you to help us immediately with arms and aeroplanes. Stop. Fraternally yours, Guido." José Guerral is the new Spanish prime minister, and when I say new, I actually mean new on that day, July 19th. French help seems like it should be pretty easy to get. I mean, if the nationalists win, then France would have 3 fascist nations on its borders. So Blum's first thought is, hell yeah! But he's got a coalition cabinet, and a shaky one at that, including a defense minister strongly hostile to the Spanish Popular Front. And in Spain's embassy in Paris, some of the staff is pro-rebel coup, and they leak the news of the telegram and Blum's favorable stance towards sending aid. The French right-wing press now takes this up and accuses Blum of risking or inciting war with Italy and Germany. Again, I'm still in the real timeline. Blum then visits London the 23rd and finds out the British don't want him sending aid. Anthony Eden even tells him to be prudent. The French press is going nuts by this time, and some of his ministers tell him they'll only back him to send aid if he gets assurances that Britain approves. This is all too much for Blum. He withdraws his support for sending aid. Instead, he proposes that the European powers, they just don't interfere at all. Non-intervention turns out to be a total farce, but that's not important now. France is. So, what if France did send aid to the Republicans and did send it back then in late July 1936? Okay, Blum ignores or overrules the French right wing and gets it done. Even though French interference in Spain will cause tensions with Italy and Germany and will very much benefit communists, socialists, and the Soviet Union, a socialist Spain is still better to Blum and his supporters than a fascist one. Germany sends aid to the nationalists and Italy follows suit. The Spanish Civil War becomes a proxy war. If Britain feels forced to choose sides, you know what they'll do. But what does the French right do? Now, backtracking to February 6, 1934, in all timelines, there was a big uprising in Paris by a variety of right-wing groups who each wanted kind of different things. We did a whole Between Two Wars episode about that situation in France. You can watch that at your leisure. Once again, a link is in the description, but that one is really super interesting. Okay, anyhow, after that revolt, there was a huge growth of far-right anti-government leagues. And while much of the French population supported an anti-fascist Popular Front coalition government, to a lot of conservative army officers, it was entry-level communism. Blum's actions now are intolerable to the right. Over the weeks and then the months as the Spanish Civil War drags on with better armed and better supplied Republicans making the conflict not only more in their favor, but more deadly, the French far right finally comes together. Many of the various leagues uniting in support of an overthrow of Blum's government and an end to supporting communism and socialism. There are demonstrations, marches, and even street violence. On the far left, the French communists are now worried that the counter-revolution is just around the corner. I mean, that's what happened in Spain, right? So they get support from the Soviet Union. Now, I would imagine that some of the right-wing groups are getting support from fascist Italy. I think it's important to note that no one is getting support from the Nazis because no one wants it. History will not allow any group in France at this time to seek that, and it would turn anyone against you if you did. The rest of Europe is moving on as it did in our reality, by the way, the Anschluss and all that. The war in Spain could conceivably last a lot longer than it did in our timeline, except France is a powder keg waiting to blow by 1938 or 39. Finally, the right-wing military, led by generals like Maxime Weygand and Charles Hunziker, staged a coup to install Philippe Pétain as president. Democratic forces fight back immediately. It is all-out war on the streets of Paris within hours. The Soviet-backed communists seize the moment and occupy parts of the south near the Spanish border. Fighting spreads throughout the nation in a French civil war. Within a week or so, 3 factions emerge in control of 3 sections of France. In the northwest and the west, it's the Democratic faction, who have British support and generals like de Gaulle and Gamelin. In the east and southeast, it's the fascist and far-right faction, those who began or supported the coup, who have Italian support. In the south and southwest, it's the Soviet-backed communists. Admiral Darlan and the Navy side with the Democratic faction. The first foreign nation to actively enter France, though, is Nazi Germany. Hitler sends the Wehrmacht into Alsace-Lorraine to protect German interests. They also happened to take Luxembourg and a bunch of the French northeast, including Sedan and parts of Champagne. I mean, why not? Britain instantly sends the British Expeditionary Force to the democratic part of France. Italy instantly sends in forces to the fascist part of France. The USSR instantly sends in forces to the communist part of France. And if by this point the French aid in Spain has turned the war there in Republican favor, Spanish communists join en masse as well. France is now split in 4, though the 4 factions are not fighting each other. I'm pretty certain that Stalin will just send in overkill forces to Spain now to end that once and for all, to avoid worrying about it if the Republicans have not won by now. No one is really in a position to stop him either. What in the world will happen now? What do you think, guys? Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? What in the world is going to happen now? It's just nuts. Okay. Sorry. Back to reality here. Now, in our reality, in the first half of 1939, France and Britain were negotiating to sign something anti-German with the USSR, but the stumbling block was Soviet troops entering Poland. Stalin insisted they needed to do that, and the other two realized that once they were there, those troops likely would never leave, so they refused. That is all different now. France cannot be of any help at all now against German designs on Poland, and the BEF cannot fight Germany alone, so those negotiations don't happen. Instead, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact happens months earlier. Hitler is not worried about a two-front war with the civil war in France on his west front, so Germany and the USSR go ahead and carve up Poland. There's nothing to stop them. The world is shocked, yada, 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 yada. But here's the thing. No one is stupid, and everyone knows Hitler's true ambitions now. Well, they likely did with the annexation of all of Czechoslovakia, which happens as well in this scenario. Spain, Italy, the USSR, and Britain now pump forces into France. Britain mines Norway's waters, though. There goes Hitler's winter iron supplies. I don't think anyone is super worried at this point about a German invasion of France. I mean, if Hitler attacks, it now has to be through the Low Countries or just straight into France, since an Ardennes thrust has been rendered moot. He already controls that territory. So there's no crazy genius move here, only traditional warfare. Nobody trusts the USSR either after Poland, but Hitler really is for the Western nations the greater of two evils, with the USSR so far away. Italy is kind of the wild card in this scenario, and I guess they could go either way, but I don't think they'll stay with Germany on its own. Not when they can get more glory. Okay, not when Mussolini can get more glory with the other side. It really comes down to Mussolini's personal decision. Let's say, though, Hitler does attack in the West, because he's fucking Hitler, okay? Such an attack does not succeed against Britain, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy, Spain, and the USSR, all protecting their interests. Even if, by some miracle, the Germans manage to beat the overwhelming odds and win in France, and maybe Belgium and the Netherlands, even without a Sedan, there is no way in hell they take Spain. Even attempting to cross the border there would make their supply and battle lines so thin that they could easily be overwhelmed. And there is no way that Halder, Guderian, and company would allow that. And if they did allow that, good luck fighting the million Soviet troops you'll meet in Spain. Stalin is not going to let Spain go. No way, Jose. That is the best-case Germany scenario. The West is a stalemate or a German loss in case of German attack. All of this, however it plays out, leads to deep anti-Hitler talks and possibly a formal alliance. Okay, Mussolini takes Albania, as he did in our world, and he might be stupid enough to take parts of Austria, thus ensuring a German invasion of Italy, and that invasion would be successful. But the French, Italian, and British navies would still remain at large in any case, and that has huge repercussions in the Far East, which I'll get to in a minute. I also do not think Mussolini is quite stupid enough to attack Austria just yet. But think. A German attack in France terminates the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, since they're now enemies. The USSR knows it's on Hitler's hit list. Hitler's Hitler list. Sure, why not? Okay, so they're beefing up in crazy in Poland and mobilizing like 400 divisions, not worrying about Finland for the moment, but taking the Baltics, of course. But the biggest question of this episode, okay, this is the part you gotta listen to. Biggest question of this episode, and of a world war really happening, What will the ever short-sighted Hitler do for oil? That is not only the big question, that is the only question. There is no war without it. He's got Romanian oil, but that's it. He no longer has oil from the USSR or the Middle East. Britain cuts that shit off pretty damn quick. The Allies, or whatever they're called, are well aware of this, and thus, Romania becomes the focus of this European war. North Africa is never even involved. Italy might be making eyes at French colonies since France is in factions, but it is still France and still has the French Navy active alongside the British Navy, and Mussolini will not want Britain and Germany and France as enemies. That is suicide. Okay. I suggest Italy advances now into Austria for revanchism, but this is actually a ruse, though prompted by genuine desire. Hitler responds by invading Italy, and that is when the Soviet Union invades Romania. Hitler is stunned, but he's got a big army, and a good army. He holds his line against the Italians, though they're still drawing off many of his troops, but he sends like 180 divisions or whatever against Romania because it really is win or go home. It really is. And that is when Britain, France, Spain, and if they're unconquered, Belgium and the Netherlands, invade Germany from the west. Perhaps with Soviet forces even as well. Possibly also Bulgarian and Greek forces were involved in the Romania attack. I have a hard time seeing Germany emerge from this victorious. The map of Europe after this is unrecognizable to us. And who can really guess how it would look after this scenario with so many factions? Meanwhile, in Asia, Khalkhin Gol happens as happened between the Soviets and Japan, and the Japanese subsequently turned their expansionist attention south, as happened. However, a British Navy that doesn't have to worry about an Italian enemy, and a French Navy that is intact, severely curtail Japanese plans, with or without the US ever being involved. Even in our reality, and which I mentioned in the first collaboration, in January 41, Japan begins rice rationing at home. A commercial boycott over Japan's war in China, support for the Chinese economically and militarily from the Allies, and the bottling up of the Japanese Navy, which can, in this timeline, not attack Malaya, Singapore, Indochina, etc., without serious local repercussions, means that rationing happens already in early 1940. Japan's only option is 100% all-out total land war in China, which leads to disaster along the lines of Napoleon, because it's a fucking stupid thing to do. But the Japanese are too arrogant in 1940 to admit error and stop the war, right? I don't really see a Pearl Harbor here and the US in the war. Maybe still the Lend-Lease Act, which is going to make the US a fortune, but the Western Hemisphere stays out of the Second Sino-Japanese War and the Great European War. There is no World War II. Or the French send aid to the Republicans in Spain. It prolongs the war, but does not change the outcome, and Franco wins. Blum and company deal with the right-wing protests and weather the storm. World War II breaks out as it did in reality. Spain is still neutral, and nothing much is different from how it actually went. See, that's how alternate histories are. They can be anything. Maybe you don't think this long one is plausible, and you know what? Maybe you're right. Feel free to send us your own scenarios. And even better, feel free to play Hearts of Iron 4 and the new expansions and see how yours turn out when you make the pivotal decisions. It is a truly awesome game. Well, I mean, you've seen some of the gameplay behind me, so you have at least an idea. And you will be surprised at the number of variations you find as you control your part of the world. I'm sure that a lot of you watching this are here for the first time, so you should check out our regular episodes. We follow World War II, the actual World War II, in real time from beginning to end, week by week, 52 weeks a year. And you can click right here to see an episode about the German breakthrough at Sedan in the Battle of France. I am especially proud of that one, actually. Do not forget to subscribe and ring that bell. See you next time.